on someone your own size, Rhino.
There is no one my size, Poke.
Or maybe we could just talk it out.
The conversation about various video game mechanics, how they work, and what can be added to them in the future to make them better is an infinite one. As the power that developers continue to have access to cram into their games and make them more intricate continues to expand, so does their ability to realize more and more compelling experiences in a multitude of areas. Map size, enemy AI, the quality of the storytelling, the boss battles are all for the most part getting better and better as we move forward. The latter, boss battles, have come a long way over the years. What started out as a fairly simple idea, the boss fight, has also become a massive playground of possibilities, as the methods bosses use to pursue you continue to evolve into more directions. Bosses are effectively a benchmark for your progress in a game. Sure, they also serve as a nice way to mix things up between the dozens of fights with more normal enemies, but more fundamentally, a boss fight is a measuring stick to see if you've learned the lessons of the game up to that point. Whether or not you get past any given boss will generally be a way to determine if you are really advancing your skills or if you perhaps need to sharpen them up a little bit more. As the gatekeepers of progress, video game bosses also come with an inherent ability to evoke a strong visceral reaction from the player, whether that be a feeling of cheerful exuberance from defeating them or a bout of controller-gripping fury upon losing to them for the 100th time. The Souls series certainly comes to mind in this regard, but really this is true for most games with well-designed bosses. The truth is, even though most bosses adhere to this gatekeeper role in video games, all in all, there really aren't too many rules when it comes to what a boss can be and what it can do. At a base level, a video game boss could just be like any other encounter with an enemy, except this enemy has noticeably more health and/or deals noticeably more damage to you, and thusly requires that much more of your attention and dedication until they are defeated. This was the case for many older arcade beat-em-ups like Streets of Rage or Double Dragon, where the boss battles aren't really that different from any other fight. Sure, this enemy is perhaps a little bigger, a little badder, and might have a few tricks up his or her sleeve, but ultimately they function just as another enemy that needs to be dispatched. Even more modern video game bosses like, say, the Argus Mech from Vanquish. While it may be a rather large enemy that takes a couple of different forms and tries to blow you to smithereens with an absolute mind-boggling blizzard of missiles, at the end of the day, it's still just another robot that needs to be shot until it's dead, making it not much different than just about anything else you come across in Vanquish. The thing that makes these battles feel special is that, aside from the differences we've already touched on, these boss battles usually see your progress stop. Whether it's a side-scrolling game halting its scrolling, or if it's a modern game leading you to a wide-open area where you can just feel the boss fight coming. A good boss fight always seems to stop everything to make you focus on them as much as they do you. This is the first key element in what separates a real boss fight from any other battle, and how they can effectively reframe your gaming experience in a way that communicates the elevated threat level and keep you on your toes. From there, and now that it has your attention and has you on edge, the boss will start to employ its bag of tricks to kill you. You will either have to play by the boss's rules or make your own, depending on the game. But that's the first major thing a boss does to ultimately handle you, reframe the gaming experience, and force you to go through them to progress. If you have learned the lessons of a well-developed game up to that point, you will likely have everything you need to do so. But a good boss battle never lets you get too confident about that. This brings us to the next main element of a good boss battle and how they are ultimately trying to end your life. Bosses will often employ their own rules in a fight, changing the dynamics of the experience from what you were doing up to that point, but still being beatable with the same set of skills you've learned up till then. The Metal Gear Solid series should pretty much be the poster child for this sort of boss battle. While you should be more than familiar with shooting your SOCOM pistol by the time you get to Revolver Ocelot, those skills will be tested in a new way, forcing you to run around the outside of Kenneth Baker's web of C4 and time your shots to when Ocelot is reloading his slugs. A new skill, yes, but it also depends on having basic knowledge of how to shoot and run in the game, which, if you've been paying attention up to that point, you should definitely have. Even in games like Crash Bandicoot, the same agenda applies. Is the battle with Ripper Roo, for instance, a totally different gameplay style than everything else you've encountered before? Absolutely, but it's still only a benchmark of how good your timing and jumping has gotten so far in the game. Skills that you should have if you've made it that far anyway, but if you somehow don't, you'll definitely lose. Shaking up the gameplay style is a massive important tool of any boss to kill the main character. The battle with the End in Metal Gear Solid 3 is an excellent example of this, as he at first appears to be nearly impossible to beat due to his clear advantage in having his eye on you with a sniper rifle from an advantageous vantage point. The End uses this distance and your relative inexperience with fighting somebody that far away to his advantage, a total shakeup from every other encounter in the game up to that point. But after a little experimentation or just looking things up online, you might realize that there are several things that could tilt the table in your favor, like using the thermal goggles to track his movements, shooting his parrot to cloud his ability to track yours, as well as listening for his breathing with the directional mic, and keeping an eye out for his lens reflection. So again, while he does provide a unique experience that might catch you flat-footed, he is still a test of various skills that are all learnable prior to that engagement with him. So with that, you should have a pretty good idea of how video game bosses work and how they ultimately try to kill you off. Surprising the player with their presence, serving as a gatekeeper that cannot be passed prior to defeat, testing the acquired player's skills up to that point, and mixing up the gameplay rules are all the most important tools in the boss's tool belt as they try to eliminate you. While boss fights will surely continue to frustrate and stupefy us from time to time, it should be clear to see that their presence in video games is an extremely valuable one, and nothing to scoff at, especially if you want to beat them. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed and would like to see more, feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to ensure you'll be notified when new videos go up.